Here, Daddy will pull you your bed out. There you go. Sit down. Daddy's gonna do a video. That's right, I hit play by accident, didn't I? Okay, well, let's just go with it. That's my copper husky back there. He's gonna join me for this video. He's a little lonely today. No clue why, he just looks lonely. Alright, let me get my Mountain Dew ready. When I watch videos, I like to sit down like a king being entertained, if you will. I don't get much time to myself, but when I do, I like to enjoy it. And I hope that you are having some good time to yourself and truly enjoying it as well. If you're watching this video, I hope that you have time for the whole thing. What this is a YouTube channel called Rational Preps is going to be doing, well, has done a video 4 years ago, actually. And I don't want to just copy paste it. I don't want any illegal functions or any copyright functions, but I do want to play the video with my reaction for education and give my input on what they say. And from what I can tell, they are logical-based, statistical-based type thought processes that are put into this video. So I'm not going to show the imagery, but I'm going to let it play, and I'm going to hit stop anytime I feel the need to reverberate something. And feel free to, comment and like and subscribe to their YouTube channel. I will put their YouTube channel in the description because this is them talking and me just commenting. But there's so many reactionary videos on the internet, and I feel like when I was driving down the road and I saw this and I said, okay, I need to hear this, but I want it to be genuine, so I want to give my actual thoughts and all as we get into it. So let's hit start and see what they have to say. And it's about ammo stockpiling, busting myths with real data. But as you know, data doesn't always apply to you. Data doesn't always apply to the future. Data doesn't always apply to happenstance and things like Kinley not having police officers. So let's break down the data that they have and whether or not you should store data and how much. Whether or not you should store ammo and how much you should store, as well as a video behind that by Magic Prepper about how much ammunition you could store, long-term storage for it. Now, I mean, y'all have probably noticed that I got rid of an entire gun case. Now, that went to a coworker that I currently work with, and I hope everything is working out with him. Me and him haven't talked in a few weeks, and just that work keeps us busy. But I'm actually during day shift and he works night shift, so we never really get a chance to hang out or talk. He needed the gun safe, and it felt more like a necessity to help someone else, a fellow 2A associate, than it did for me to just keep it and keep ammo stockpiled in it or anywhere else for that matter. So let's go through these videos, and you may be thinking from the lack of the third gun safe that I'm actually starting to lean towards what he's saying. Let's see if we agree or not. Alright, so I'm going to hit play, and we're going to start. And if anyone has any problems with this, or Rational Preps, if y'all feel the need to ask me to take the video down, just let me know. I'm down to earth. I don't want any strikes on my YouTube channel, and I don't want to take away from any of your followers. This should be, if anything, advertisement for y'all, but just giving my opinion on the ordeal, because there are some people in his comment section that seem to be commenting that he sounds leftist or anti-gun, and I don't believe anyone that's pro-gun can possibly be anti-gun. So let's find out. Here we go. Stockpiling ammo. Busting myths.
So-called experts love to pontificate on the amount of ammunition preppers should stockpile. Some say 500 rounds per gun. Others say 1,000. Still others scoff and say those numbers are child's play. This video looks at real-world data to cut through the BS and determine what a smart investment in ammo really looks like. There are 4 primary rationales used for stockpiling ammunition: self-defense, hunting, militia activities, and perhaps the worst idea ever, using ammo for barter. First, self-defense. In 2018, only a minuscule percentage of U.S. citizens actually fired guns in self-defense. Cops confront criminals daily, but most have never fired their weapons in the line of duty. Smart preppers also know to avoid gunfights like the plague. But if you must fight, it's good to know how many shots you should expect to fire when guns are drawn. A New York City police report based on more than 3,600 shooting incidents showed that cops fire an average of only 2.9 shots per incident. Claude Warner surveyed close to 500 successful firearm self-defense reports, 36% of which involved multiple assailants. He found successful civilian defenders fire an average of only 2 shots per incident. Greg Ellifrit studied more than 1,700 real-world gunfights. He determined that all weapon types incapacitate aggressors with an average of less than 2 head or torso hits. There will always be outliers on the high end, but that's 3 different real-world sources with large sample sizes, all saying you can expect to fire an average of 3 or fewer shots in the rare event you are ever in a self-defense gunfight. But that's today. What about after SHTF? The American Wild West, with its homegrown law enforcement, guns, gangs, and violence, is the best historical example we have of a real SHTF-like situation. Here are the Wild West's most prolific gunfighters and their legendary kill counts. Now, here are their actual, historically verified...
Hold on, because y'all can't see that in this video. Let me give y'all the imagery that he's showing me, just for the sake of understanding the video.
Hey, what about after SHTF? The American Wild West, with its homegrown law enforcement, guns, gangs, and violence, is the best historical example we have of a real SHTF-like situation. Here are the Wild West's most prolific gunfighters and their legendary kill counts.
Okay, so what he's showing us is the 5 most legendary, historical, best-known gunfighters. John Harding, Wild Bill Hickok, Billy the Kid, Jim Miller, and Tom Horn. Their counts go in the same order as their name. John with 42, Wild Bill with 60, Billy the Kid with 21, Jim Miller with 50, and Tom Horn with 50. To be honest, Billy the Kid, which is probably one of the better known than the Jim and Tom, no one seems to know Wild Bill. Jim or Tom. But Billy the Kid, damn, he's got the least of any of them. But these are the legendary numbers. I feel like he's going to give us the real numbers. Let's see what they are as well.
Now, here are their actual, historically verified numbers of kills. It's important to understand.
Going in the same order, just in case to keep from making it difficult for you to follow. Apparently, John Harding only had 8 kills. Apparently, Wild Bill Hickok only had 7 kills. So, Billy the Kid actually had more than either of them with 9 kills. And Jim actually had 14, and Tom Horn had 17. So even though they were betting in the 50s, it was actually 14 and 15. More than half of those were made up. So nobody broke 20 out of all of these, actually. And that is a surprisingly high amount of inflation. Where rumors have spread and made things much worse than they actually are. Let's see how it keeps going.
And that these men represent the extreme highs of gunfight participation for the time. By today's standards, they would all be considered psychopaths.
Charles Manson killed
Out of
7.
these 5 record-setting Wild West killers, only 2 are verified to have been in more than 10 gunfights. So, 10 gunfights times an average of 3 shots per fight comes to just 30 rounds.
Yeah.
Even if you panic every time and fire an average of 10 rounds per gunfight, that's still only 100 bullets. It's the folks playing too many video games that think you need more than that for self-defense.
Hold on now. Now, hold on. Rational preps. Pardon me, but we need to have a talk. So, I understand couch video game playing gun lovers that don't actually go out and shoot guns would probably think you can imaginarily store hundreds of thousands of rounds of ammo and maybe that it doesn't cost what it does. But here's the actual truth that I think rational preps ought to consider as well. If you're going to go out and shoot people for self-defense, you're legally required to be responsible for every bullet that comes out the end of that gun. And hell, open carry and concealed carry, they expire within 5 years or so for each state that has it. If you conceal carry and you have your permit, you have to recertify at least every 5 years, and that recertification comes with shooting to prove that you can do it. Now, I know we're discussing shit hits the fan, but if you have to recertify and you go to the gun range to practice all the time, then you're not just shooting 300 or 100 rounds every time shit hits the fan in these scenarios. You're shooting, I mean, they say it takes 3 months to break a habit, 91 days. So if you don't shoot in 91 days, you would probably start to effectively get worse at your talent. I think people that do certain things like basketball, baseball, golf, and they get hurt and they're out in the hospital for large periods of time, actually do have to go back and hit the practice a lot harder than if they had just continued to play all the time. And in theory, even Tiger Woods, if Tiger Woods was to take 6 years off without ever needing to swing his golf club, would struggle to pick it back up. Therefore, you can't just go by this math and go that you're 100 or 300 rounds when shit hits the fan, because you're going to need to practice. Because even if shit hits the fan, a large community of people that feels a certain type of way is going to still hold you responsible if they don't like what happens when you pull the trigger. And you can't shoot everybody. That being said, let's keep in mind, if you do shoot somebody and you do miss and it doesn't hit anybody, you didn't solve your problem if you still have to shoot the gun again. So, with that being said, being more accurate, by actually practicing your shot, you'll conserve the number of shots that you take during this. Now, that doesn't say the shots in total. You could go to the gun range for an hour and you could fire 30 rounds for fun. Now, you could also fire 30 rounds zeroing something in, and you could fire 30 rounds because you're just not good with the gun you have your hands on. That being said, y'all have seen from my videos I have hundreds of guns, and I am not good with all of them. There are guns that, for the life of me, I don't look like I have any business owning. Take, for example, these two. This is Rascal, and this is Cricket, I believe. It actually says My First Rifle on it, and it's blue. At one point, I was hoping that it would go to my son, who passed away. And I remember when I picked it up, I said, I know he's far too young for this. He had just been born. I said, but they may not make these, and the laws may change, so I want to make sure I get it before that happens. And then he can shoot my gun till he's old enough to inherit it, and it would be the one that he learned on with gun safety after I got him out of the BB guns and airsoft guns. And, well, he didn't make it, but I still have the gun. And I'm probably far more efficient with this than that 50 cal black powder rifle back there. But it's not because I can't pick up the 50 cal Black Wolf rifle back there and just be good. It's because, one, you have to keep installing the black powder to zoom it in. It's a little difficult. This has iron sights, which I'm actually far better with iron sights than I am a scope, and it's smaller with almost practically no recoil, if any recoil. So I'm better with this than that, 50 cal sitting over there. And this one being pink, I probably wouldn't shoot it unless some weird fucked up situation happened. But one day this one could be my daughter's if she shows any interest in guns. And they're very similar. Little single shot, bolt action, I would say two-step rifles. And, you may have one of these or something else and something in between. And if you've never shot it before, you're not going to pick it up and nail a bullseye at 100 yards every time. You're just not going to. So I would make the argument to Rational Prep that, when shit hits the fan, you have to look at what guns you have and how good you are with them. If something was to happen and shit hits the fan, there's a chance that somebody has gotten a hold of my Mark IV or it stopped working. Thus, I have to pick up one of the other handguns that I'm not so good with. The Mark IV, I seem to be incredibly accurate with it, although still not on point. 100 yards is very difficult to aim a Mark IV with, being it's a handgun. But it happens. And with the it happens, I'm going to let it go at that. They have their opinion, and I have mine. My opinion is a little different than their opinion, and that's okay. That is okay. Everything is not about me and me being right. There are differences in opinions. But what it sounds like is that they say without ever practicing. You will not need to practice. You only need 100 rounds if you're going to panic and shoot 10 rounds per gunfight. So keep that in mind. He's saying 100 rounds if you shoot 10 bullets per gunfight and you're in 10 gunfights. I'm going to suggest that you have 500 rounds for maybe 10 rounds a year practicing once a year just to make sure you're good. If something's going on and you find that your talent is drooping, consume more and make sure you're still good. Now that's just being conservative and saying 500 rounds, and as you're getting more accurate by practicing, you are consuming the amount that you have. So 1,000 rounds could be better if you're gonna pick it up once a year and have to relearn, or do the same number, 10 shots or so, every 6 months. Which is still twice a year, which is 20 bullets per year, just to continue shooting your gun. I digress. Let's get back to the video. You know how well you are with your gun. I know that with a number of my guns, I'm not as proficient as with others, and I have more guns than other people. So there are people with just one handgun and are not that proficient, and they will have to burn more bullets to become proficient because shit has hit the fan. With shit hitting the fan, I don't know what's going on there, and I'm not going to play part of it. When shit hits the fan, you want to make sure you are not being mob rule hung by a tree like a guy from the Old West. Be accurate with your shots. Hold off on shooting as long as you can until it's obvious if you don't shoot, you will die. And make sure you are accurate. That being said, I am not a lawyer, and if shit has hit the fan, you have to do what you find to be right. Let's continue with the video, because what they're saying is very informative, though. Wrong or not, opinionated or not, and excluding training or not, it does sound very informative, and without the idea that I get worse when I don't practice, it does make a lot of sense, but I get worse when I don't practice. Oh no, where'd he go?
One more thing. It turns out murdering lots of people has some fairly predictable consequences.
All of them shot
Next
and killed.
Up, hunting. Just because you plan to hunt, it does not mean you're going to be successful. More than 105,000 hunters registered for the Oregon 2017 deer season. Only 25,000 deer were harvested that year. That means more than 80,000 hunters went home empty-handed. Finding game will only get harder during SHTF because every fool with a 9mm pistol or a shotgun will also be out there trying to murder animals. The Alabama DNR notes that deer were almost hunted to extinction in that state during the Great Depression. Given these stats, you don't really want to rely on gun hunting as your sole source of protein. Trapping, fishing, and raising livestock are much more reliable and don't consume non-renewable resources. But let's imagine there is game available and you are luckier or more skilled than 75% of hunters. The next question is, how many deer can you expect to harvest? The Ohio DNR did a study on successful hunters. They found that only 27% bagged more than one deer, and less than 1% bagged more than 5. 5 deer, by the way, can be turned into close to 1,000 meals. Now, good hunters know 5 shots are required to harvest the first deer of the season. 4 to zero their weapon, and 1 to kill the animal. This means that the most elite deer hunters will fire about 10 rounds per season. The vast majority of folks will fire 4 to 6. If the
I have to stop that because I want to have a discussion with y'all, and it's a discussion that I'm not very proud of. So, ignoring a lot of what he said, every year you're going to fire only 4 bullets to zone in your rifle and 1 to shoot a deer or elk or whatever is available. And he's doing the math and suggesting you can get 1,000 meals out of one. See, first problem is, how do we know that that's going to be available where you live? Is it elk? Is it deer? Is it duck? Is it goose? Is it moose? Is it geese? Is it mice? What is it that's available for you to hunt? And also, is there still just enough law enforcement and private property that you can't technically go out and hunt it? Would it be a better idea for you to knock over a abandoned and no longer functioning grocery store, or a better idea to actually go hunting? Well, he is saying if you're hunting and you can get almost 1,000 meals, well, that depends on how you make the meals, how you store the meals. If there's no longer electricity because shit has hit the fan and no one is running these electrical companies, then you're not going to have a way to freeze them. So things are going to go out unless you have a lot of salt, and get prepared to start eating things with maggots and flavorings and spices. We'll be going back to the old pirate way of making things last, soaking it in salt and leaving it in salt dried out and cured, and with a few bugs crawling on it, you wipe them off and cook it. So you just keep going. Who nowadays has the nerve to do that? Who can do that? And who knows how to cook well enough to make sure that food that's starting to go bad like that can actually still be digestible and safe to eat? Therefore, I would not try to stretch a moose or anything else out to 1,000 meals. If I had extra meat, I would hand it out to people around me. And in the hopes that because I am constantly benefiting the people around me, that they would want to keep me around and would not stab me in the back during shit hits the fan. But that's just me. That's just me. I know I can't cook very well to begin with. The first thing I would have to do is instinctively use my grill, and I have a couple of cylinders of LP gas, and I have some charcoal, but at some point those things are going to run out, and then the gas grill becomes a charcoal grill or a wood grill, and the charcoal grill becomes a wood grill, and that's about all you have left then. So you make do with what you got. And I also don't know how to cook, so it would be pretty much steaks and burgers. And that's, the burger thing is the idea, you're munching up the meat, packing it together and making a burger. I don't know that I'd even know how to do that. I buy my burger meat like the rest of us do at No Huna's processing center, or from Walmart and Food Lion, in the already packaged meat. If there's no electricity to run your electric meat grinder, where are you getting the meat ground up at? So it's probably going to be in big slabs and big turkey legs and big strips of meat and pulled pork type things, unless you have hand crank turn cooking tools around the house to process the meat into like a burger. So I understand what they're saying, and what they're saying is you can make meat last. But the best advice I would have for that is, if you're determined that you're going to do stuff like that, first thing you need to do is learn how to make homemade lye. The not necessarily the soap, the fat-based preservative jars, where you shove the meat into the white boiled down fat to preserve the meat and make it last longer. And then you have to kind of figure out how you're going to cook these meats when you have them soaked in that fat. And also, that fat is grievously unhealthy. So you're going to need to make sure that if you're going to do so, even though it is better for you than just eating dried salt meat, you're going to want to make sure you stay in shape and all of that mess. That salt can cause kidney stones like something fierce, and there's no doctors anymore. And kidney stones are going to fucking hurt coming out your dick. Also, if you're eating them out of the pretty much the lard, you're clogging up some pores in here. I mean, it's good old country food, it's good old soul food, but it's not good for you. So in a starvation situation, it may help prolong you, but I would still invest in fruits and vegetables, and I don't know that I would mix them, preserving them. I think I would preserve them separately if I knew how. Otherwise, I would eat largely vegetarian meals with weekly meat meals if I could have them. And that's just an ideal thing in my opinion. But if you've ever sat down and decided you needed to prep and pulled up a video like his or mine, you've probably already decided what kind of meals you would have, and you may have already Googled how to prepare them. You do what you know, and you know what you do. So with that, we're going to move forward with the video, because again, he's not wrong, but he's just not right. I don't know anyone that's going to straight up eat day in and day out 1,000 straight meats of straight up hamburger, or straight up steak, or straight up tenderloin. I think that could make you go mad, and that's if you could preserve it for 1,000 meals. If you're eating one meal a day, that's 1,000 days. And we're not even addressing the 4 shots to zone in the rifle every year. Now, why would the rifle go out of zone? If all of your bullets are the same brand, the same powder, the same velocity, and it's the same bullet that you've sighted in with to begin with, and you've done the thing appropriately where you tap it after you shoot, and then zone it again, and tap it. Every time you hit the controls, you tap it to make sure that you're zoning it in and where it's going to stay, then it shouldn't need to be zoned in anymore. But you still should be actually training, practicing, trying. So you're probably going to use closer to 30, 60 rounds for practice and zoning rather than the 4. And I mean, if you're good, you're good. If you're 60 years old, you've been shooting that same gun since you were 10, and you know those bullets, and you never shoot anything but Remington 30-30, and you know the feet per second, the drop at 1,000 yards, and all this shit, and it's not been challenged. You know this stuff is set, and you're serious about it, and that is one thing that you can shit, is your gun's statistical information and how to do it, and you have hundreds of thousands of hours in your training, go ahead. Don't shoot your rifle all year, except for 4 times and then once at hunting. If you think you can bring home that deer with that, go for it. But I am a terribly not not well ingrained person. My muscle memory is not perfect, and it's nowhere near perfect. And you could probably argue that my problem is I keep picking up different guns. But at the same time, what happens when your firearm messes up? You can't get another part for it because shit hits the fan, and now you have to pick up one that can still shoot the ammo that you have available, but it's not your gun. So, stock for every scenario. Don't stock for the scenario. Just a thought. Let's keep going though. Let's keep going.
TF scenario lasts 30 years. You wouldn't need much more than 300 hunting cartridges. A hunting strategy based on small game like rabbits would require obvious adjustments. If you are prepping for an event that lasts longer than 30 years...
Okay, so hold on. Let me reiterate what he said. You okay back there? So, he's saying that if you shoot one deer and you use 5 rounds and you shoot a deer a year or something like that, that you're statistically only going to use roughly 300 rounds in 30 years, and that you would have to mathematically adjust that for the amount of food you were getting from shooting smaller game. And then he showed an image of a rabbit showing that you can get roughly 4 meals out of a rabbit. I can't stress enough how you have to cook rabbit very cautiously. Rabbit starvation has killed people, and killed people who didn't know they were starving. Rabbit starvation is because the meat in a rabbit is so tough for your body to process into energy that it actually costs more energy from your storage to consume the rabbit than you're going to get out of the rabbit. The work put in does not equal or less than work out. For those of you who are into math, for people who have no clue what I'm talking about, eating a rabbit and starving is possible, and there's YouTube videos on it, and there's science behind it. So you can Google rabbit starvation or starving while consuming rabbit, and you will see articles after articles and some science, and people even calling it a myth because no one does it. No one just consumes rabbit. But that being said, his point stands, and that's where I was saying a while ago, how do we know an elk is something that you have available? How do we know a deer is something you have available? Maybe you have a bunch of elephants around you. Maybe you don't have the heart to kill the elephants. Although, elephant is a much, much bigger animal, and one shot could still kill them if you shoot them in the head, the meat would go bad very quickly. And how much of that is actually meat? How much of that is fat? Do you even know? Do I even know? And, you could make the argument that if you do know how much of that is meat, you do skin all of the meat, you can barter some of that meat with neighbors to get some chicken or some more ammunition. So, where are we really at with this prepping thing? Well, it's just to keep in mind that what's available can only produce so much food, so that you have to do a calculation to how much more ammunition you're going to need to keep up your food levels. So what he was saying is just keep in mind the math that is taken involved. If you know that what you have around your house is a shit ton of chickens, then you have to say, well, 1 bullet per chicken. And if you have 50 chickens, that's 50 chickens, 50 bullets. And if a chicken is only good for 2 meals, then you have 50 bullets. It's good for 100 meals. It's good for 100 meals, and a meal a day is 100 days. That's less than a year. You're going to use 100 bullets. Well, you're going to use 50 bullets in a year, and that's without training, without practice. I would suggest if you're going to do that, stockpile a much, much smaller bullet. That way, you're not only are you conserving storage space, but you're not blowing the meat apart and losing valuable meat from your meal. Just shoot them with a 22 or a 17 HMR or 22 Flobert even, if you can adequately peck their head with a little BB round that a 22 Flobert is. But 50 chickens in a year, and now your chickens are gone. That's unsustainable because now you don't have eggs. So you have to. There's some math that's involved. It's it's a deep thought. MREs are always an option, and people like the Hodge twins. They advertise those big, basically prep ready meals that are good for 50 years or so, and they're freeze dried, dry bag storage food that doesn't require freezing, and all of these meals are really nice, and all of these thought processes are great. But the biggest thing is, because you're only considering one caliber here. He's only going on the math of just picking off a deer, and then considering that you'll get less meat from a different venue. I would suggest, like I do, to have multiple guns, because there's a lot of people out there to go, my 30-06 is all I need, and then they shoot a rabbit, and the rabbit fucking explodes, man. It was 10 feet from them. It's not. You can't shoot everything with one gun. You just can't. It's not a viable way to survive. I would suggest at least carry one 22 and one full-size hunting round, whether it be 30-06, 380, 270, whatever the rounds are that you want to carry. Kind of stagger a small and a large, at least one of both. And that's just a thought. But people like me that have multiple size calibers with multiple guns, I have the ability to pick up a gun from anywhere, and I probably have a bullet that can shoot out of it. Or vice versa, I can pick up bullets anywhere, and I probably have a gun that can shoot it. And to kind of give you like a good example, this firearm, I did wear it to the Dollar General, and it shoots 22 long rifle. Oh, whoa, wait, but Walmart won't sell handgun cartridges, but they sell 22 long rifle. So this handgun is shooting a rifle round? Well, yes and no. There's things going on with math and people and bullets, and Walmart's politics are stupid. If I can carry 22 in a handgun, how come I can't purchase a single solitary 9mm for my Kel-Tec Sub 2000? Don't know who this is. We may have to pause the video. I can't go 30 minutes without my phone ringing. Oh, okay. They hung up. Great. So, my point being that, I can shoot the 22 long rifle out of this, and I also have a rifle, and I can be kind of precise, and I can be more precise, and I can be more portable, and I can be less portable, but I'll shoot, for defense or small game. I'm not likely to go out and shoot a full-size deer with a 22 long rifle. 22 long rifle is great, but if I'm going to shoot a big animal, I want it to be a humane shot, so I want to use something bigger. Even if it has to be 50 cal black powder, at least I know that what I'm doing is ethical. I don't have to feel bad about it. And it's a him or me kind of situation. But like it's that deer or me. I'm going to starve or it's going to die. But I shouldn't have to shoot 5 shots of 22 long rifle if everything else is going to be okay in the long run. Just shooting something bigger when one single bullet can take care of it. Because that could be 5 different chickens, 5 different rabbits. That could be 2 or 3 small dogs that are attacking my family, friends, or my dog. That could be me catching a cat. Not that I'm going to eat a cat, but in desperate times, as desperate situations, people have done things worse, including cannibalism. So, just keep in mind that even though he's spitting pure fact here, fact doesn't always fit the narrative for every little thing, and he's leaving out stuff like, if you end up with a different gun, if your gun breaks, if if for some reason your stash of bullets is bad, so you have to get a different stash of bullets that have a different projectile velocity. Now you've got to retrain your gun. At 100 yards, the foot per second for a bullet is going to be different with this foot. The accuracy on the bullet that you've trained with and sighted your gun at it at 1,200 feet per second, at this many grains of weight on the bullet, is going to severely throw you off when you pick up an 1,100 feet per second bullet that has this many grains. They behave differently at 50 yards. They behave differently at 100 yards. You're going to have to make sure that the gun you're running and the bullets that you're firing are what you're training with and what you're sighting in with if you want to be accurate. And being accurate will conserve bullets, but you're going to have to use bullets to conserve bullets. So him saying this is all you need is really in just about every single situation in which the statistics show someone has trained, someone has sighted in properly, and then someone has shot because they needed to. The self-defense and the hunting, he's not accounted for any training, any gun ranging, anything else. And if you have a son and you think you're going to grow into your old age not teaching him how to shoot and wasting bullets, you're wrong. If shit has hit the fan and there's no government, no one's coming to help you and no one's coming to save you, and your 15-year-old son needs to know how to shoot a gun, you're going to waste some extra bullets. So just try to keep things like that in mind while you're stockpiling these guns. Don't let videos like this tell you exactly the number that you have, and I'm sure that's not what he wants you to do. So just keep an open mind for all of the extra external possibilities.
And that lasts longer than 30 years, it would be wise to invest in hunting technologies with naturally renewable ammunition, like bows or blowguns. Remember, humans somehow managed to survive for hundreds of thousands of years before firearms were invented. Next, militia actions.
Okay, now I had cut him off right before he said something very good, and I hit play. So he rolled out of the you need this many bullets for 30 years kind of thing. When shit hits the fan, it is assumed that it could take anywhere from 20 to 45 years for a government to fully reestablish in America from end to end. There could be portions of government here, but not there, and vice versa, because if shit truly hits the fan, we're going to lose the technology. Other governments may try to step in, the UN may try to step in, and they may specifically only take certain portions. So there could be kind of a gang alliance here and there, and it could be every bit of 30 plus years. So in situations in which 30 plus years is the projected foreseeable time, it's better to not rely on firearm. Therefore, options like this one, forgive that's swimming suit if you're confused or curious. This is a hunting bow. It's camouflaged and ready to go for bow hunting. Wait. In the corner, it's hard to tell. That's my black 70-pound bow. That is, it's kind of more tactical just because it's black, and I have it because it's black. I like black if people haven't noticed, but I have a hunting bow. The hunting bow is camouflage for the purpose of not being too obvious when you're hunting. I really need to do a video on these bows, and maybe I will. I think I already have. But using a bow that you've become familiar with and you are ready to hunt with will make your hunting more effective. It's quieter, for one. 2, you can reuse the arrows and the tips most of the time. And 3, people aren't as afraid of you when they see a bow. I don't know why people aren't as afraid, but when people see a hunter or someone who's carrying one of these in self-defense, they don't usually think he's here to kill me. Whereas a lot of the times when I go to Walmart, I get looks from people who just straight up fear me. And you know what? Let the ignorant fear. But in a time where shit has hit the fan, you want people to think that you are harmless, whether they are going to hurt you or not. Because if they're not going to hurt you, you don't need to push away an ally. And in the situation in which they may hurt you, you want them to assume you're defenseless to give yourself an edge. Having something like this and maybe carrying a small gun in your back would, well, in your back pocket or something, would give you an edge over someone who doesn't think you have a bullet because they're expecting you to do all of this extra stuff before you can defend yourself. So when you're reaching behind your back, they're not really expecting a firearm now, are they? This would be more reliable for renewable hunting because you could potentially find a couple of sticks and twigs and make new arrows from time to time. Growing up, we didn't have these, and my dad was not going to buy me a bow and arrow. He suggested that was unsafe for a child. And you could get bamboo reeds. They grow everywhere. We got bamboo reeds, me and my neighbors, and we would take a string and put them over a particularly springy chunk of wood, and we'd cut down the bamboo reeds and put an angle on the big side and put a notch on the small side, and we'd have our arrows. And you know what? They weren't the worst thing to shoot either. They may work just fine on this, and if they don't, if you do have a little damage on one end of your arrows, it's possible to cut them down and keep going. Plus, there's ammo stores out there and arrow stores. Like I hate to pull them into such a thing, but First Flight Archery in Raleigh, if there was an absolute shit hits the fan and no one was around anymore and that store was sitting abandoned, that would be your first bet in Raleigh to go pick up some more arrows that were probably in your size, and then you could just keep going. It wouldn't be a wonder of, has the ammo gone bad? Did it get baked in a fire? Did it get too hot? Has the primer worn out or worn? Is it rusty or corroded? Digga 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 digga. It's a lot simpler to keep something like this running than a firearm if you can't keep it clean, and you can practice without actually wasting ammo. There is a caveat, though, that people are completely overlooking, and that's the wear and tear to these strings. If you don't have a bow tech or somebody who can restring this or repair the string, if you're not using the bow wax to prevent unnecessary wear on this as you're using it, you're going to have a failure, and when that string pops apart, it could take a limb off. As far as I'm aware, it could take a finger in a minute, and that could be a very important, sudden, more important situation than lunch. But once it's broken, how do you get the string back on it? Because 70 pounds is a damn hard draw. So you may have to end up building something somewhat complex to repair this and keep going. But as long as you have the mechanical ability to make some wood and pry this thing into a wooden frame that can draw the limbs together, you could potentially run just about any kind of string. But I think these strings have some kind of metal in them, and I would definitely keep an eye out for extra string that you could put back for a rainy day if you're going to store for this. That's not being said in the video, so I'm saying it for you. If you're going to stockpile ammo and you're going to have a bow because you want to be ready for the 30 plus years, if you're going to be ready for hunting and, just use guns for self-defense against other humans and stuff, I would consider buying 20 or 30 strings to keep back in airtight Ziploc bags for when these wear out, and I would purchase a restringing station for your make and model bow, or a universal stringing station for bows, because that can be difficult. But we're going to get back to the video. I'm going to put this up. We're going to get back to the video. This is running a little long, which is fine because it's for the good of everyone who can watch. Do apologize, but I tend to keep my bow kind of mount it on the wall inside the door here. And I do so carefully so it doesn't move. I don't want to damage it opening and closing the door. There we go. So I'm back. After that ramble, they were talking about for the use of militia. We've already been through hunting, and then we went through self-defense first and then hunting. Now we're on to militia activity, which is a reason to keep a certain amount of ammunition.
Invest in hunting technologies with naturally renewable ammunition, like bows or blowguns. Remember, humans somehow managed to survive for hundreds of thousands of years before firearms were invented. Next, militia actions. Let's be clear. Fighting a personally funded militia war against an invading modern military force is an absolute dead-end strategy.
So, they were showing the images of David Koresh and showing that there was 87 dead. If you're not familiar with Waco, Texas, the government, specifically the Tobacco, Firearms, and Alcohol, the ATF, the Fat Boys, they waged a siege on a compound. And it was only a compound in words. I mean, compound is a word, kind of means a big building, but you could also use manor, mansion, utility building, warehouse to describe this place, because it had children in it, it had families in it, people were living together, it was religious. So, I mean, you could call it pretty much anything. It could be a big church, a synagogue, but the thing that stays constant is that these people were neither a threat to anyone nor illegally doing anything wrong. They had a FFL license. I believe it was FFL. In other words, they had appropriately did all the documentation, all the tax write-off information, all the business requirements in order to be a company or corporation that builds and makes firearms. They built and made firearms and sold them as profit to fund their church. They weren't stockpiling weapons. They had a warehouse of weapons they sold. They sold them like any other gun store, like any other gun manufacturer, and they did so with religious practices, religious beliefs, children and families living on the property together in harmony for years, several years. In fact, a good portion of the church had decided to head in a different direction, and they split off, and the place was still there. It had been there for so long before the ATF decided to get involved. The ATF got involved, shot someone's dog, and then shot a man at the door and injured him. And it got worse and worse and worse. The ATF never apologized. They never backed down. They lied about the tactics that they used, which we have on video that they did in fact use. They lied about using mental torture, like playing dolphin sounds and shit. They did in fact do so. They lied about shining lights on the compound at night to keep people from sleeping. They did in fact do so. You can find all of this in documentations about Waco, Texas on YouTube and Google right now. They lied about all of that, and they were the government power. The government power that the left chooses to have you believe will never harm you, never lie to you, and never do you anything unjust. If you're on the left and you're still hanging with me in this video, consider this. If the ATF can do somebody so wrong, and you want the government to have power. If you fear Donald Trump actually being a dictator, why would you want to give the government so much fucking power for someone like Donald Trump to take control of that and become a dictator with that much power? Now, I, for one, don't think that Donald Trump was a bad guy, but for the people screaming that he's worse than Hitler, why would you give the government the power so that when he takes office, or if anyone else takes office, that they could do that to somebody? Think about it. That being said, what he's saying and what I'm trying to say is Waco, Texas was a massacre. 87 people died. They died through issues with a religious belief and the fact that they were innocent and they had no clue what was going on. And while having no clue what was going on, they had been brutally attacked out of nowhere for no reason, with no true legit warrant, and with these actions, feared stepping out, feared turning themselves over, feared letting go of the house that they were in, feared turning over the children, and the shit just kept hitting the fan harder and harder and harder. So, his point and my point the same is militia. If you haven't noticed, going up against the government doesn't end well. And it doesn't. It really doesn't. Now, we can argue all day long that the government's not going to nuke their own ground. We can argue all day long that the government's not going to rain fire and hailstorms across their entire state to kill one person. And you're probably right if you're one person. But the idea of a militia going up against the United States military right now does seem laughable. So let's keep that in mind while we let the video keep going. I'm going to back it up just a little.
Fighting a personally funded militia war against an invading modern military force is an absolute dead end.
82 followers dead, plus
the
him.
Government's resources
So
and
83?
equipment will always be vastly superior
I said
to whatever
87.
you can scrape together as a civilian. The notion that a civilian AR-15 and a 200-round combat load can blaze a path to victory against a modern military force is nothing but a glorious fantasy. In 2018, Afghan militia fighters managed to kill only 14 of the 8,475 U.S. troops stationed there. Of those 14, just 6 soldiers were killed by small arms fire. 6. That means, despite firing hundreds of thousands of rounds, militia riflemen only managed to kill a pathetic 0.0007% of the military force occupying their country. The fact that modern military forces are equipped with level 4 body armor is a key reason for the spectacular failure of militia riflemen. This protection is specifically designed to stop 5.56 and 7.62 rounds. Considering the state of the modern battlefield, it wouldn't matter if you hoarded 1 million rounds of AR-15 ammo. Those munitions are simply not effective against today's soldiers. You might as well stockpile spitballs. If your survival is important to you.
Before he gives his spin on this, I will suggest, though, that shot placement is always the most important thing. The biggest thing that I see with the American soldiers is that you have to keep in mind, if shit hits the fan and the government's broken down, the military's not going to be a thing. There's going to be tons of military people with no leadership. They're going to be just like you and me. When shit hits the fan, they're probably not going to be going against you. They're probably going to be going with you. If you remember, these people swore an oath to support and protect. They work for us, just like the police officers. Now, yes, there's a couple of hundreds of thousands of them that are in there for the sake of they get to kill somebody. There's a couple of 100,000 of them who just want to be able to go to college for free. There's a couple 100,000 of them that are, and they want to room and bunk with tons of other manly men. But for the most part, if you get into the military, you probably have a sense of duty, and you're probably going to do it. I do have a friend of mine, and while I was living with him, actually, and it's not the reason I moved out. It's not, David, it is not the reason I moved out, buddy. And it was months before I actually moved out. We had the discussion about if Joe Biden was to call him into duty, because he was not active duty, what he would be doing. And he said, if I'm called in to take up arms, I'm going to take up arms. And I discussed with him, I said, you do realize you're taking up arms against the American people? And he said, my duty is to America. And I said, your duty is to the people of America. And he had a disagreement with me. And he said, if you were to come at me with that kind of nonsense and we were in that situation, he said, I would have to shoot you in the face. And I said, I promise you, knowing that I already know that that's the way that you would be going, I would be compelled to shoot you in the back. Now, that being said, if he ever gets that call, I don't want to confront him. I love that man. He is my best friend since elementary school, and he's not going to change his ways, and I'm not going to change my ways. He has a very different set of opinions on religion, and I'm not sure if he's Republican or not. I know he's not Democrat, but I can't never tell what he is, and it doesn't matter. But there are Air Force, Marines, and Green Berets, and standard frontline infantrymen that know that their duty is to serve and protect, and they are just the foreign and domestic version of a policeman. They are doing what their police captain has told them to do to keep people in line foreign. Yeah, in National Guard type situations, military may get dispersed to help with emergency situations here in America if there's floods or fires and natural disasters. But for the most part, the military is basically a external police department, and they do in fact work for us. They get paid from our tax money. They get trained to do what they do voluntarily. They're not pulled into service, but they can be. And all of these people have a wife and kids here in America. So if they just go slaughtering innocent women and children and they're not paying attention to who they're slaughtering, the guy beside them could be killing their own wife. So it's not a good idea for these people to be doing that. Fighting against the United States government's probably not going to happen. You're probably going to have some good old American family and friends saying that they're not going to do it. And their commanding officer is either going to have to shoot them in the head or they're going to let them go. If there's enough people walking out, I imagine there won't be much argument or fighting going on there. Shit hitting the fan here in America would be more or less that there's a loss of power and the financial system breaks down and then people aren't working because there's no financial system. If the military has been called to act against its people and they say no and they go home, then there's probably going to be rioting, looting in the streets. There's going to be mass chaos, mass panic. The police forces may dwindle, and a lot of the police forces may be struggling on whether or not they're on the side of the people who are rioting and looting. And because of this, the pandemonium that ensues, there's probably not going to be a lot of financial reward to putting out a couple $100 worth of paychecks to somebody running around killing bad guys or perceived bad guys when they can't take that money to the store the next day and buy something to eat. I don't actually believe that the end all when shit hits the fan is that the government's going to come from door to door to take your guns. I do not believe that because most people in the government will not do that. I don't believe they're that stupid. There are people who will try right now because it's not en masse, but if they know that going door to door is going to lead to people getting shot because they've already announced and people have already spread the word and people have already gotten shot while going door to door en masse, people are going to stop really quickly. And other people who already don't believe in it won't do it. So don't get in your head that that's going to be the thing. The big thing is going to be that the dollar crashes and is no longer a thing and the military has stopped existing. And because the military has stopped existing, the shit hitting the fan with militia forces going up against military may be foreign military, which will not include things like tanks, because they can't get those here very fast. By the time we're seeing tanks headed up the North Carolina shore, people in California will have time to seize the military supplies that have been abandoned at every single station and outpost throughout the United States of America. And there are people who know how to use them, how to drive them, and how to fire them. And by the time they get their asses and their tanks and their supplies to North Carolina shores, the North Carolina shores that are letting out people from other countries, they will probably be running out of gas. And America has their own gas, but what I'm getting at is the people with the tanks that are coming over in boats and on very heavy airplanes would not have the sustainability to keep those things going, whereas the United States soldiers and Air Force and military members who are going to be taking upon themselves to ascertain tanks and airplanes during such a apocalypse would probably win with the home field advantage. There could probably be Japanese military people or Chinese military people heading a tank straight into the woods and actually has 13, 14 miles to go before they find anyone, and they're just out there fucking lost and run out of gas. It's not the same as going to any other country and bombing the shit out of them or running a tank because everyone's huddled together. America is fucking large. There's this British guy, he does TikTok, and he's just always surprised about all these things about America. One of them is that you can drive for 6+ hours in one direction and still be in Texas. Yeah. So don't get the idea that we can't hold our own against the military, because it won't be the American military, and the foreign militaries, they have so far to go to get here that we're really only talking about the Mexican military and the Canadian military. Those are the only two that we would really have to worry about, and we still have military people who would know and do what was necessary to defend their home country. And with that being said, I will argue that shot placement in the mouth area of an uncovered person in body armor is just as effective as a chest shot. Just food for thought. But let's keep going, because they're not wrong. With what they're saying, they're not wrong. It's just that things aren't always as data would suggest. So let's back this up a little bit and keep going.
Rounds of AR-15 ammo. Those munitions are simply not effective against today's soldiers. You might as well stockpile spitballs. If your survival is important to you, armor is a much smarter investment than ammunition. Sniping is the one potentially effective militia rifle strategy. The greatest sniper of all time is Simo Hayek. Finnish military records show that he tallied 259 sniper kills against the Russians during the Winter War of 1939. His sniping career ended after only 119 days when he was shot in the face and permanently disfigured. So, if you think you can match the very best sniper in the history of mankind, you won't need more than 300 rounds to prove it. Finally, some people stockpile ammo thinking they will use it to barter with.
Hold on. He's transitioning into the final discussion point, so let me go ahead and stop. Anyone, and I mean anyone, who feels that they're going to need to carry a gun in self-defense when his shit is at the fan should already be buying body armor. And that is because health and medical and hospitals are not going to be a thing. You really can't afford to be hit in the lungs or the chest or the liver or the kidneys if you can't self-treat, and if you don't have that pure grit to burn yourself shut and sew up a gash and pull a bullet out of yourself, you really need firearm protection. Bulletproof chest plates, there's bulletproof jackets that are better for lightweight armor. You could wear the two. I would do a full-size bulletproof jacket with a actual piece of body armor that could protect 223, and I would do a military style helmet. But again, with a lot of these military style helmets, with most of them, you have a chin strap and you have a bucket, and everything right here is full game. So it's not going to protect you but so much. So your money is really more important for the chest plate and maybe the jacket, because the jackets that you can buy are good for like 22s and 17 HMRs, and since those things are so easily stockable and it's easier to shoot and people can afford those guns easier, that's probably what's going to be used to mug you. And if those bullets are actually stoppable with a bulletproof jacket, then I would suggest that having that on is better than not having anything. You may make it out of that brawl with a severe injury, like the worst punch you've ever felt, maybe like a Subaru hitting you at 50 miles an hour, but your arm isn't blown off, you're not bleeding, and you don't have a bullet in your sternum or something. So that's something to consider if you're going to go the route of self-defense, and I think you should, that you should have actual body armor for military rounds, and you should cover it so people can't see it with something more like the Demolition Ranch has showed a number of them, and a lot of them have been fake. But bulletproof jackets, Demolition Ranch might sell their own actual bulletproof jacket. But by wearing something like that, someone's going to come up and mug you. They might actually use a knife, and when they hit that bulletproof plate, well, you've gotten your warning that he's trying to kill you, and you've gotten your warning of what he's trying to use, and you've shocked him, and he doesn't know what to do next. So you have the home field advantage, and you have the advantage of knowing what your armor is up for, and you know what you're running. So now you are in charge of this situation. He's not wrong with you getting some armor. The problem is that he's saying that it's better to just wear armor than to try to defend yourself. If there's a military person and he's coming at you and he's ready to kill you, it would make more sense to go ahead and shoot him in this general area than to just let him shoot at you and shoot at you and shoot at you and shoot at you. Because I promise you, he's probably going to try to shoot you in the head if he knows that you have bulletproof armor. And if he shot you twice and you get up a third time, he's going to know you have bulletproof armor. So it becomes a matter of time till he shot you in the head. So this bulletproof armor is really still only good for self-defense against regular people. People in the military didn't survive being in the military because they're stupid. They survived being in the military because they're smart. But that being said, you can still take out a military person. If you look up a Chinese soldier in battle uniform, even their faces are completely exposed for the majority of their helmets. That being said, I would like to press forward. Keep in mind that the militia can be successful and has been successful. And in 1776, the Americans, who had decided they were no longer British colonizers, did in fact overthrow a force that was stronger than them, with more supplies than them, purely from I'm not going to die, I'm not going to submit, and home field advantage set of determination and skills and wit. That is what got them through. And if shit hits the fan now, that can still get us through now. You have to know that you can. You have to be determined. You have to train. You have to try and be ready to survive. This isn't about taking out the United States American Air Force or Marines. This is about if shit hits the fan and someone comes at you, whether they have on military gear or not. They're not in the military if there's no America. Let's push forward, because his last talking point is, should you stockpile ammo for bartering? And since he seems to think that that's not a smart idea from his tone at the beginning, let's see where he's going with this and see if I can convince you of something different.
This is a terrible idea. Bartering with ammo will primarily attract two types of customers. First, the desperately unprepared. People with no ammo are not likely to have anything else of value to trade to a well-prepared person, and you've got to ask yourself what they plan to do with the ammo you give them. Do you really want to top off the magazines of all the random desperate souls who wander through your community? Common sense dictates that you should never barter away something that can be used to kill you. That brings up the second group, the dangerous. These folks will be looking for ammo because they use a lot of it. That means they're likely criminals or those prone to violence. Bartering out ammo to them is about as smart as setting up a free-range rattlesnake ranch next to a daycare center. The worst part of bartering ammo is that it is a bright, shining advertisement to criminals, saying that you are the one who has exactly what they want most. That's not a theory. The Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms says thieves often see gun dealers as easy targets. Their data shows gun store thefts are rising, and the smash-and-grab techniques are growing more bold. These fellas didn't let anything stop them from getting what they wanted. During SHTF, will you have the security to stop a raid like this? They were in and out in 30 seconds. Why would you invite this kind of trouble when the world is already awash with chaos? Finally, if you think through the problem of paying soldiers and guards, you will understand why no one in history has ever used ammunition as currency. So,
let me interrupt that, because that's very fucking wrong. Okay. It sounds legit and it makes sense, and his argument is a valid looking argument. First of all, what he was showing as a clip of proof was that apparently a blue truck ran through a firearm dealership and just barged through and had three people hopping out, smashing all of the glasses and grabbing things. Well, here's a couple of problems with that. A truly prepared gun shop is going to have bulletproof glass. You're not going to break bulletproof glass with your hand, okay? So he's going to have to continue with the truck to break that glass. Now, secondarily, if you actually lock your storefront with iron bars and then you have the wall with just one door, it's much harder than if you have one big decorative glass wall and one door. These people took advantage of a design that was not suitable for a gun store. The gun store made multiple mistakes there, such as not having bulletproof glass on their display cases, not having an actual wall or a gate of iron to protect their entrance. And it's a shame that you should have to do things like that. You really shouldn't have to do things like that, but things are getting worse. If I was going to barter ammo, I would be telling people I have 5 bullets. All the time. Even if I had 20,000 bullets. If I walk into a bartering area and I want a chicken, and they say, "What do you have?" I have 5 bullets. If that's not enough for them, I tell them, what is it that you require? And if they say 15 bullets, is that chicken worth 15 bullets? If I only have a rooster and I need a female so that I can start making more chickens, then it may be worth 15 to 20 bullets. However, I would make it very known to them that I cannot get them all 15 bullets in one sitting, that they're going to have to be patient with me and give me a few minutes, that I was going to go home and get the rest of them. And I would make sure that I had one person standing there that's with me to hold the 5 that I have while I go back and get the rest. I wouldn't carry everything on me. Even then, the 15 that I had wouldn't be all I was carrying, because I would be carrying my gun to make sure I wasn't double-crossed. I would only be willing to deal with people that I probably already knew, and I would be dealing with them in a way that it's not for them to, kill me. It's their stand where they're trying to get rid of their chickens and trying to get something else. Whereas their offer is not them coming to me going, "Hey man, hey, I need some bullets." It's, "This is what I have. What do you offer?" And I would be the one bartering that I have bullets. Now that prevents me from going up against someone desperate, and that would prevent me from having people knowing that I just have absolute stockpiles of ammo. And if people were to ever confront me and go, "You've paid with bullets a number of times now, do you just have them stockpiled?" I go, "No, I pick them up here and there with my bartering trades just like anyone else." And if you have any problems with people, you're probably going to have the problems with people for any little reason. If they're really going to pick apart that you have 5 bullets here and you had 5 bullets next month, then they're probably going to pick apart that you had a knife today and a knife next month. It's not really something to argue about. It's not really something to do. Yes, gun stores have a lot of problems. Don't advertise if you're not willing to deal with it. I know on the channel that people see that I have guns, and that's cool, but they're locked up very heavily. That thing, I mean, if somebody absolutely, truly, genuinely wanted to have it on a day that I hadn't taken it out and shot it, they would be very surprised to find that it doesn't just sit there. The guns that I have sitting out, I sit them out when I'm going to be in the room for several hours, just because they're around me. But you'd be surprised to find out that they have a lock on their trigger, a lock in their dwell, and inside of a locked box that's bolted down thoroughly to the ground in multiple places, in a room that's been locked, in a house that's locked, way out in the country somewhere, at a place that you just don't know. And I actually, you've seen that I have a dog now. I guess I he's done hidden, he's actually not very friendly to people that he doesn't know. So you have to guess that I have them. You have to guess at my location. You have to make it past my dog after making it past my door. Then you have to make it past another door. You have to make it past wireless security cameras. You have to make it past bolted down iron metal security. Then you have to figure out how to get the security off of it and out of it. Then you still have to find the ammo, find the magazines for a lot of it, figure out what magazines go to what ammo goes to what, and then figure out how to shoot it. So what good does it really do you in a split-second cash and grab? Except if you're going to barter it to somebody else. So my situation is not like a FFL dealer with a actual shop with a wall made of glass. That is just a stupid way to run a business. I wouldn't be running a business bartering and selling ammo and guns. I would be trying to hold on to my ammos and guns. And in the situations in which I find that I am turning 60 and maybe for some reason life hit me really hard, disease is running in my family, and I'm starting to become a very shaky person, I would probably go far more shotgun and a lot less rifle and start bartering with the rifle bullets and the rifles because I can't shoot them anymore. And in a situation like that, me having multiple shotguns means that I don't have to go out and barter for one with someone that does have a shotgun. And that means I'm in a situation where if I'm bartering for somebody trying to get a shotgun, I know they have a shotgun, they know I have something of value that I want them to take, they have a shotgun, they could just kill me and take the barter. So bartering is dangerous. You have to know the right way to do it, the wrong way to do it, who to do it with, and when. You also need to make sure that people don't think that you're some kind of bank or storage house for that stuff. Here on YouTube, yes, I'm putting myself out there quite a bit. But when shit hits the fan, is there really going to be live streams and data where people can just look up who does have things and who don't and their addresses? I don't think so. That being said, I'm always willing to meet people who go out to gun range and stuff, but most of y'all are just so damn far away that it's not like I'd even consider y'all a threat. And the majority of the people that I'm meeting online that I talk with seem to be fairly friendly people that are likely to be doing the same thing that I'm doing and not in a position to take my guns. Matter of fact, most of y'all seem to think that my 22s are harmless, so why would y'all want to take my 22s from me? You know? With that said, I'm not disclosing that bartering is bad. I'm disclosing that bartering the way he's talking about is a bad thing, but there are a right way and wrong way to do a lot of things, including bartering. Bartering with ammo, such as the black powder rifle, for instance, is going to be a very necessity-based thing because people that live closer to the mountains would be closer to the mines where they could get and make gunpowder. Now, why do I say that? Well, because you can't just keep gunpowder. Sometimes it gets wet, then it's all bad. Gunpowder just doesn't store the way other firearm cartridges store. If you have a black powder rifle and you intend to continue using it throughout the rest of your life when shit hits the fan, you're going to have to find someone that has some or has recently made some. You either need to be a person who can get their hands on the materials or the ores or the tools, or be able to get your hands on stuff and barter with people who have had their hands on the tools, the ores, the stuffs. I would argue that a black powder rifle is probably one of the worst things to have when shit hits the fan. However, when shit hits the fan, a black powder rifle is probably one of the best things for people to know that you have, because they're least likely to try to take that from you. If that is the go-to that you carry around in public and you have a hidden firearm on you like a handgun, people are less likely to be afraid of a black powder and they're less likely to try to take it from you as well. And your backup gun that people don't know about will make for good insurance if they try you, which means you've learned about their character. They can take that from you. Good luck shooting it. You pull out your gun and you deal with the situation. Not giving you advice, not telling you what to do, but I'm telling you that I would probably be carrying the black powder loaded but without the primer. And I would probably be carrying it with my handgun hidden. it probably wouldn't be my Henry, and that's okay. Sorry, probably wouldn't be my Mark IV, but that's okay. Because, again, I'm trying to figure out what people's character is like during an end-of-the-world situation, and their character is very valuable information. So even if it costs me my black powder rifle, I've learned something about one or more people in the process, and that information can be vital to my survival and for others who witness such a thing. Now, that's a lot of thought, but if someone was to rip that off of my back, they can't fire it because I've kept the primer. They're not likely to have that primer in their possession, and they're probably thinking that it's a bolt-action rifle. They've immediately discovered that it's not, and it's fucking useless. Whether I kill them or not, they're probably going to hand me the rifle back, and I'm probably not going to lose the rifle. But that can be a good hunting rifle, as well as for trying situations like that. It can open the door to you being seen as far less of a threat. When a bunch of people are in an area and one tries to take it from you and realizes that it's practically useless and throws the shit back to you and runs away. So now you have a face that you know is a bad person you can't trust, and a bunch of people have heard that you're actually not a threat. So if you're going to be carrying a rifle as opposed to a bow in a place full of people when shit has hit the fan, people will probably trust you more when they've heard that the gun is practically for looks. Again, people that understand black powder rifles would know it's not harmless, but it does take a minute. And because of that, it's still a perfectly fine hunting rifle, but it's not going to be a quick, fast, and effective self-defense gun. So in a situation like that, people would start to not be as afraid of you as they would if you're carrying an AR-15 or a M1 Garand or an overly large-sized pistol caliber carbine with a drum magazine. And in those situations, it would be a better carry to go out and barter. But I probably wouldn't barter it because it probably wouldn't have a lot of value to someone who doesn't intend to hunt. And that being said, the whole idea of having ammo for the sake of bartering, even if you couldn't barter the ammo because you've decided I got to switch up my tactics, if you suddenly have a pile of 223 and you end up with something that shoots 223 even though you didn't have something that shoots 223, you now have more hunting ammunition and self-defense ammunition that you can use because of this new gun. So the idea of keeping it around for bartering, but playing it smart and not stockpiling stores of it is still an okay thing. Because you could end up not bartering it and end up with a way to use it. And you can still barter it in small amounts, kind of almost secretly, and get the things that you need without, handing over your wife to somebody. Now that's a long-winded way to say he's right, but there you go. And we're almost done with the video. I'm going to back it up just a little bit because it looks like he has about 20 minutes left. We're going to see what he has to say.
How much ammo should you stockpile? That answer is easy. Stockpile as much as you want to. Just don't get fooled into buying more than you really need.
He got me there. So, Rational Preps has made an entire video where you're expecting that they're doing some kind of math to tell you how much to stockpile. Then at the end, it's basically, you're not wrong for whatever amount you got. So he's got me there because I thought I was going to have to kind of put in my 2 cents, and at the end we were going to have to see, basically how much did he say, how much did I say. And ironically, I guess neither one of us are wrong. There are other facts that you have to take into account, and personality traits, and where you're living, and what your hunting situation is going to be, and what your survival situation is going to be. And because of that, you can't really be wrong if you have 20,000 more. But at the same time, the video actually kind of comes down to clickbait, because you didn't get an answer that you thought you were going to get. Busting myths with real data didn't really say that he was going to give you an answer. But ammo stockpiling, busting myths, and then he was saying what would be the smart amount to actually set back. He didn't really give us an answer. It's kind of like those videos on the Discovery Channel where they're like ancient aliens, and you watch for 3 hours, and they end the video with, "Were aliens here?" I don't know. I watched for 3 hours and never got the fucking answer. Were they? you didn't get an answer that you were looking for in the video. So they did a good job. They got me there. I was expecting an answer, and then I was going to have to see if I could pick that apart and make more sense of it or less sense of it, or suggest an alternate way to look at it. Stockpile whatever you want. Just don't be surprised if you bought too much. Well, I would argue that if you want to get 2,000 rounds of anything, it wouldn't be too much. Because at the end of the day, even if the gun has broken and you have 1,000 rounds left, that's 1,000 rounds you can barter to somebody with a gun that they can use for parts towards getting a vehicle, a gallon of gas to get you to where your family is. You know, it's not always going to be about you have a homestead and all of your family is right here. You may be the black sheep of the family and you've moved to Raleigh, North Carolina, and you have no family near you and everyone else is in Virginia or Goldsboro or Georgia, and you need to get there. And all you have is a rifle, a shotgun, a handgun, you have your pet cat, and you have a couple of video games that are no longer worth anything because there's no electricity. So what do? Well, you're shooting to get your food as you try to travel day by day. You're living out of a tent. You're trying to not be a victim, and you're wrapping your guns and ammo inside the tent as you carry it on your back during the day with your firearm at your side, and your cat's been let go because there's honestly no way to transport it, and you're headed on foot all the way to Virginia or Georgia or the next town, and your firearm breaks because you have no way to clean it, and it's been in the weather, and now you have these bullets and a firearm that doesn't work. Well, this guy has a vehicle, nowhere to go. There's nowhere to put gas in it anymore, but it has a full tank, and he needs to repair his rifle for hunting, and he needs some more bullets. Well, that sounds like a pretty fair trade right there. He knows you have another gun, so he's not willing to try you, and he hands you the keys as you hand him the gun. And it's a straight up trade. You can put that vehicle on the road that day without any title exchanging because, again, no government. You don't have to go to the DMV. You don't need an inspection. And you can drive as far as that tank of gas will get you towards where your family is. And if it cuts a day off of your driving time, then it's been a success. Keep in mind, for those of you who are not mechanically inclined, people did find that 55 actually is the most fuel efficient speed. So if you're looking to get somewhere, put it in 55 and cruise control and let it get you there in the amount of time that it takes to get you there. If you can only go a tank's worth of gas, the most fuel efficient trip of a tank's worth of gas is better than getting to that spot. Well, you won't get to that spot if you go any faster or slower and it's fuel efficient. To go 55, going 45 or 75 is going to make you come up a couple of miles short, and any extra mile you have to walk that takes extra hour or two is going to put you further back from getting to your family. Keep in mind your family could be moving towards you or further than you based on their situation as well, and they could or couldn't potentially already be dead. So deciding whether or not to travel to your family needs to be something you have to decide. I can't tell you to do such a thing. If we're talking about shit hits the fan, all of your personal situationals need to be taken into account. Are you diabetic? Do you need diabetic supplies? Where can you get these supplies? They can't be refrigerated anymore, so how much longer will diabetic supplies be available? So the idea of being in good shape instead of just being a big fat tub of lard and then suggesting because you're on the left and it's body positive that when shit hits the fan you'll just get more insulin is probably a bad idea. No, I'm not saying that all diabetic people are going to die if they don't work out, although we will all die whether we work out or not. I'm actually saying that a lot of people who are diabetic that are in a much better physical condition can survive better than diabetics who are 400 and 500 pounds. So if you're one of those diabetics where you've started to creep up into 300s, consider trying to lose some weight to help yourself in these situations, because shit hits the fan isn't just a when shit hits the fan you're sitting in your chair ready. When shit hits the fan, you need to be on a bike, you need to be bench pressing. You need to be target shooting. You need to be practicing your fishing knots and your building of lures, and practicing, actually fishing without a reel, because just stick fishing and cane pole fishing will probably be a big thing when all of the rods and reels that can't be mass produced are no longer working. So, thoughts, comments. Where is this for you? Where does this sit in videos of discussing shit hitting the fan for you? Did you like their video? Even though you couldn't see it, I apologize. Did you enjoy it? Would you be heading over to their channel to like and subscribe? I don't really do advertisements, and I'm not trying to get likes and subscriptions because it's not really my thing. I don't mind if people like and subscribe to me, but I'm not going to do actual advertisements unless certain situations have arrived. I try to make people aware if I was going to receive something for free, and even then I am brutally honest with my perception of how something is doing. Even for the video in which I did with lightsabers, I mentioned that Art Sabers had sold me a lightsaber for my girlfriend. I bought it for a Christmas gift, and the tip did break. They reached out to me and offered to warranty it, basically, and they are giving me a new blade. They're giving me a new blade because of my YouTube video, but they're giving me a blade because their blade is broken. They are respectfully doing what I would consider to be the right thing. By doing this right thing, they do make their company look better, and I can honestly say, when I get the blade and put it on, that they did basically warranty the blade. I wasn't expecting to get another one, but they saw the video and decided that they had messed up and wanted to do right by their customer. So there are some things here and there that I may mention, but I'm never going to advertise. Like, Mountain Dew does not pay me. And to be honest with you, I hate Mountain Dew. It tastes wonderful. It's killing my teeth. They're actually black. I need a dentist, and I don't know how to go about getting one and getting the time off of work and setting up the pay. Because I know I'm looking at probably $10,000 getting all these teeth pulled out and getting new teeth put in that are fake. I want those ones that are drilled in with the titanium bits and all. I don't want to have to do this twice. So I've just been sitting on it. And, if people would pay me, that'd be great. But I'm not willing to sacrifice my honest opinion about things. So that's where that video ends. I will leave that video in the comments. I will try to get the link, but I will probably just list the actual YouTube channel, and I hope that that's okay, because, and I mean this very, very gently, because I don't have a better way to do it, I want to just show you the channel. It's got red and black, and it says Rational Preps. It's got an R and a P inside of black symbols. Let's see if I can just pull up their symbol. Yep, there you go. R, and there's a P in there. Huh. Okay. Let's move on to the second video. If I can get back to that second video. Yep. Long-term ammo storage. The reason I want to go through this in the same sitting is because I am actually understanding that ammo does go bad and that you can't technically long-term storage ammo. I do have ammo. I have quite a bit of ammo that I don't intend to shoot if I don't have to. But at the same time, I have found that some of the older ammo, as I've pulled it out and shot it, didn't really shoot. So I'm confused as to whether or not I bought a bad batch or if it just aged out. Let's see what they have to say about it, because they, just like Rational Preps, is another 3-year-old gun video by Magic Prepper, who seems to probably have some kind of statistics that we can follow, and maybe this will further help you. Let's go.
So the Vanish holster, which you can actually see me wearing right here, is a holster that works with any clothing.
Let's talk about how to store ammunition for a long period of time and what those different storage options are. Hey everybody, it's Magic Prepper, and today we're going to talk about how to store ammunition for a long period of time and what your different storage options are when it comes to storing that ammo. There's a lot of different ways you can store ammunition, and some are better than others. There's definitely ways you can store it to where it's going to protect it the most from corrosion, and there's also ways you can store it that are seemingly good in theory, but actually aren't as good as leaving them in the box. So we're going to go ahead and go over each individual way I have out here on the table of how to store your ammunition, or even what the factory can provide you with just from the store, as well as the different options that are out there that you could do that I don't personally do myself. And then we'll talk about what I think is the best way to go, and then that will be towards the end of the video, so make sure you stick around. Real quickly, if you do like videos about ammunition, firearms, or SHTF topics in general, hit that subscribe button below because it helps the channel grow, and I appreciate every single one of you. So I'm going to go ahead and give you a close-up perspective on the different ammunition storage devices I have here. I'm also going to go ahead and show you my technique for storing ammo and what I prefer to do. And then everyone else can leave all of their suggestions or opinions in the comments below. So hopefully we can all learn from each other and figure out maybe there's even a better way than what I'm telling you. But this is from my experience. This is from being in many different climates. And it's also from being a little bit on the budget, if you know what I mean. So I'll go ahead and get a closer up look here. We'll talk about techniques, procedures, and we'll also talk about what my favorite and what I think the most efficient way to store ammo is. All right, everybody. So this is a display of many different ways you can store ammunition, and I have went ahead and emptied out these ammo cases just so I can show you guys how I like to load them, or give you some ideas of different ways you can load them. And I'm also trying to give you some ideas of how you can stay organized while still being as efficient as possible when it comes to stopping things like corrosion. So we'll go ahead and we'll talk about the factory ammo and the way it comes first, and then we'll talk about what you can do to basically improve on what the factory delivers, and then we'll talk about how I like to actually store my ammunition, generally in these types of cans, and we'll also talk about which one of these cans is the best way to go. So there's a lot of information to go over, but we'll go ahead and make it happen because I want you guys to store your ammunition properly, and I want all that stockpile ammunition you recently picked up to be stored away and ready to go in case you need it down the road. So basically what I wanted to do here was, first I'll show you some of these factory options, okay? So we basically have old and new, okay? So this is a really old box of Remington. It is 380. It's just super old, and obviously it's still held up to the test of time. It's still in condition to be a box. It's not falling apart. It's not completely ruined. However, you can see that it's been through quite a bit. Whereas Blazer and Winchester here are two pretty much brand new boxes of 9mm that have two different storage components inside. And we'll just talk about why leaving your ammo in the box isn't always the best way to go. And then we'll go ahead and look at this box to kind of see why. So this is an old school box. They used to just make these with a very basic cardboard. Go ahead and open it there. Okay, and then inside is just tons of styrofoam, right? And it's held up. I mean, this thing is still going. It's not going to fall apart today. It's not going to fall apart in 10 years. But it's definitely not the best way to store your ammunition because this is cardboard. And cardboard has a bad habit of holding on to moisture. And as you can see, even though styrofoam doesn't as much, the bullets inside here are starting to get a little bit corroded. I'll go ahead and try to zoom this in so you guys can see. But yeah, you can see that they are starting to lose some of their sheen. They are definitely getting some corrosion.
Now, I know you can't see the video, and that's for a number of reasons, and I do apologize. But basically what he's going over is the fact that cardboard, the boxes that the bullets come in, tend to have the ability to hold moisture, and he's not wrong. Hold on, I will attempt to help you with this with a visual of my own. I don't know that mine have degraded any, but let's take this 30-06 load. Yeah, 30-06 Springfield. Now, I do have it in plastic, not the same plastic, but the cardboard can hold moisture, and the moisture is still technically up against the primers on the bullet, if not the sides as well. And because of this, the primers can be laying up against moisture and could cause undue pre-wear, of it corroding and rusting and oxidizing. Mine look good, but the reason mine look good is because of the way I store them, and they're also not super old. He said that is a fairly old box, and on top of me believing him, this does not compare to a super old box. This may have been carried for the last 4 years. I try to pick a couple of boxes to be old, and then when I buy new boxes, I try to rotate them into what I'm going to shoot and what I have. So I actually avoid having old boxes because I keep them on a rotation, but I also store them in their boxes in a cool, climate-controlled room inside other boxes. And I try to keep the humidity out of the room as much as possible, and I do rotate through. There's little storage kitty litter bags that you can put in ammo boxes to kind of keep moisture out as well. I am not currently doing it, and it's obvious, and I know that you would call me out if I said I was doing it. So just being honest with you, right now I have not done it, and since I moved. Before the move, you probably could have seen in one of these ammo boxes gun safes. Matter of fact, the one that I sold, I kept tons of kitty litter in the bottom where the buttstocks of the guns were, and that was because for some reason the guns that I put in there all seemed to have sweat more than other guns in other boxes. It seemed to be a little bit less airtight, seemed to be a little bit less humidity avoidant, and I kept the guns soaked in gun oil, where I couldn't actually shoot them without cleaning them first, but with the oil preventing them from oxidizing. So it is a good idea that if you're going to leave them in something like this, you make sure that the cardboard can't get to moisture. Using kitty litter and waterproof containers and climate control. There's a number of factors that need to go into doing so. Let's keep going, though, because I'm sure he's going to something, and I'm just, interrupting.
Marks, there's some oxidization on there, and even the primer is being treated here in the pocket with some kind of a chemical, but it's still starting to fade away as well. So, not that these rounds won't go off, and not that these rounds aren't still good. It's just not the best way to store the ammunition if you're going to leave it in the box, okay? So, that being said, go ahead, put this back in here, and that's just an example of a really old box that's still holding up and still has the ammunition in it. But you can start to see some signs of corrosion if this box is just left out on its own to, meet the elements. I'm going to set this over here. Winchester still uses a very similar design when it comes to their boxes. So we'll go ahead and open this up.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's basically the same idea. It's got the styrofoam inside, okay? And then you've got all your rounds in here. These primer pockets aren't actually treated, but rounds are still good to go. They've been in a climate-controlled environment, so nothing to see here. But just wanted to show that that same technique is still being used today. So even though that box of Remington is really old, the same thing we're using for Winchester right now is what they did back then, okay? And what I prefer is more like what Blazer does, okay? And the reason I prefer it is because what Blazer does is they roll with a plastic carrying case here for all the rounds. So plastic is generally better at getting rid of or not absorbing moisture and not holding on to anything corrosive. So I prefer it. And then, from the factory, it's nice and organized, and this plastic can be reused if you want to use it for like reloading or something like that. So this is what I prefer. This is more modern, and I think if you were to store your ammunition in the factory box, the plastic ones are going to still be a little bit better than the styrofoam, but not by much, as you can tell from that Remington box. So I just wanted to show what the factory.
Before he proceeds to keep going, let me just state that when you're storing bullets in plastic as opposed to foam, and you're putting them back in the cardboard box, the primers are still resting against a side of the box that is made of cardboard where moisture can sit. So even though he's saying it's better, it's actually not that much better. He's not saying it is a better idea. It's if you have a choice. And that only really protects the projectile end and the casing itself some. It does not really make wonders. and it would really help more if the bullet has been coated in wax, like some bullets do get coatings of. But it will depend on what you buy, where you buy it, when you buy it, how you store it. We're going to keep going.
Also, certain producers are starting to put out their own version of long-term storage containers that come with the ammo as soon as you buy it. So this is a box right here. And this is Ammo Incorporated. This is some of their 7.62 by 51, okay? And it's 125 rounds in here. But this thing is basically designed the same way as a military-style ammo can. It's just made out of plastic instead of metal. So it has a locking device here on the front, okay? Or side, whatever you want to call it, I guess. And then you open it, and there you are. Full of rounds, 125 rounds in here. It even has a silica packet, which we'll talk about later, but that's important. And nice O-ring seal here on the inside. So it's got a rubber O-ring, which helps keep any moisture or anything out. So I'm actually pretty impressed with this case. There's a lot of companies who do this. I know Federal does it. There's a lot of companies that do this. But this is a new trend. Not super new, but it's definitely something you haven't seen always since the beginning of time. And I think it's a good way to go. I mean, this is a very capable box. It's definitely got the O-ring seal, and it's got the latch to make sure it's got a tight seal. So in all reality, I feel pretty good about leaving the ammunition in here. Still not the 100% best way to go, but for buying ammo straight from the store and already having it ready to be stored long term, not a bad way to go. So I'm going to set this down. And now you've seen what we can do from the factory, okay? So let's move on to what you can do if you want to take the rounds out of the box, but not necessarily put them in anything else right now. So one thing you can do is obviously buy some of these like MTM cases, okay? So these cases are made generally for reloading. The idea is that you reload your rounds and you have a box to put them back in. Obviously, a lot of people just save their old boxes, but this works, okay? So you can see here, bunch of 357 and some snap caps in here, but basically it holds the same amount of rounds as those factory boxes, but in a little bit more of a protective way. This is harder plastic, so if I was to drop it or have something happen catastrophic to the box itself, it's going to hold up better than the paper, cardboard, or the styrofoam inside of those boxes. So they're a little bit sturdier. However, they have the same issue that the boxes have, and that's that they're not sealed. There's no O-ring in here or anything like that. It's just a nicer, harder box to store your ammo in. And the one thing I like about it that gives it one leg up from the factory boxes is the whole thing is made out of plastic. So there's no cardboard, there's no styrofoam, there's nothing that might absorb moisture and cause corrosion to happen faster. So, in my opinion, these are better than the factory boxes. Also, they allow for you to be organized and kind of keep your rounds separate due to color coding. And they also come with, let's see here. They come with labels you can use. So if you're doing like reloading or anything like that, you can actually, mark down your loads and talk about how your rounds are that are inside of that case. Okay. So, this is an old one, obviously, but just an example of what's nice about those cases. So, go ahead and throw that
I
in
have
there.
a label maker, but that's nice.
That's something I find better than the factory. And if you're going to just move your rounds from one box to the next, these aren't a bad way to go, and they're not very expensive. However, these are still not appropriate for long-term storage because they don't seal and they don't have an O-ring, and there's no way to really protect them from moisture outside, okay? Another thing I wanted to mention is if you're going to talk about long-term ammo storage, I did say earlier, there are some things that are worse than just leaving them in the box, right? Well, one of those things is actually going to be a case like this, okay? So this is an MTM case guard shot shell case, okay? So there's nothing wrong with the case. It does the job. And I just have these little 5 rounds up here it holds on to, which, is kind of nice. But this is more for taking with you going hunting or something like that. You can stage some of your rounds if you're going to do some duck hunting or something and have it sitting right next to you. And then if you open it, it's got enough room here for 50 shot shells, and then it actually has some space as well, if you can see it right there, for your chokes and everything else, okay? So this is great for application of bringing it with you. If you're going to go to the range, or you're going to go hunting, or you're going to go out and just do some shooting on some public land, not a bad way to go. However, This has way too much empty space for being good long-term ammo storage. There's so much empty space in here that's wasted. If you're doing long-term ammo storage, you don't need room for chokes and choke wrenches and everything else. You also don't need all this excess airspace that's up in here. You can see that there's a ton, okay? Let me get these rounds out of the way real quick. Okay, so lots of empty space, which means lots of room for air and moisture. There's still not an O-ring seal in here, which there easily could have been, so that would have been nice. But either way, too much empty space. And the other problem with that, not just for moisture and air and everything else, is for just storage space in general. My boxes of shot shells take up much less space than this does. So for 50 shot shells, I can take up probably only 2/3 of the space that this thing takes up. So if you're talking about storage long term,
just carry 2 boxes in your vest.
Space, or at least staying as tight as possible. Stuff like this is actually not helpful. I would rather leave my shot shells in the box than leave them in this for long term. So that's just my 2 cents, and I wanted to go over that just so you guys could kind of keep something like that in mind for when you're buying some of the.
It kind of just resembles a tackle box, a cheap 1-drawer, no-trade tackle box.
These containers, not all of them are good for long-term storage for those reasons, okay? So we'll move on to one more thing that you're not going to see very often, but it's something that you can do. Some people, myself included, I guess, will vacuum seal their ammunition, okay? And there's nothing necessarily better about doing this than there is about storing it in some of the ways I'm going to show you here in a minute. But what I do this for is specifically for in my vehicle, because it takes up very little space. It fits inside my center console easily. I use an oxygen absorber here in order to try to keep any moisture mitigated that's inside of the vacuum seal once you seal it up. And it has enough rounds to reload 2 magazines for me in it.
So I can't show you because I'm trying to, withdraw for the purposes of this video is for me to be educational and all, and I don't want the copyright strikes, and I'm more than willing to send you to Magic Prepper. But what he's actually got here is he's got the rounds side by side, nice and tight, firmly, and in 2 rows facing each other so that they don't click on a primer, and they are vacuum sealed inside of a case with a silica pack. Now, the vacuum seal already got rid of 90% or more of the air, but the silica packs eat oxygen, not necessarily moisture, but oxygen is part of the corrosiveness. So what he's done is he's effectively eliminated 100% of the air and moisture from inside the pack, and now he can put it in his vehicle in a small storage place. He doesn't have to worry about the temperature of the vehicle and the humidity.
So I strategically do this just for my vehicle. I feel like the vacuum seal helps keep it protected from the elements, especially because of the oxygen absorber. And it definitely gives me a little bit of a leg up when it comes to having my rounds accessible, but also portioned out in the right amounts for reloading magazines. So this is something you can do. However, if you're talking about lots of ammunition and long-term storage and mainly having stuff at your home or your location where you store everything, this is not necessarily worth the amount of time spent to do this to all your ammunition, okay? So this is something you can do. And if you're really anal and you want to just make sure you have everything sealed up as best as possible,
I would suggest, and I would be interested in doing so, I'm going to be looking into a vacuuming and laminating system for doing things like laminating my license to better protect it just a little bit, and other such stuff, such as my Social Security card, which I've had to replace because it worn out, and other vital documents. If I ever get the title to a house, I'm going to laminate the shit out of it so it just can't get spilled with coffee. And if I have one, and they do the vacuum seal paper and stuff, because they do have some that do both, lamination and vacuum seal, and ors, then I could potentially do just a couple 100 rounds vacuum sealed, and I could take them out to the shed and store them in a non-climate controlled environment. But I would still store them inside of a waterproof, sturdy, heavy-duty metal ammo container, and I would still pile some silica or salt into that container to try to disregard bugs and try to push out anything weather-related to protect the box and make it sturdy and strong and solid. So I might would give this a try, but I don't have the tools to do so just yet. So I might, and we may see that on the video in the future, me doing so. but he's just showing 2 rounds worth, 2 magazines worth of ammo rounds. What's wrong, buddy? That are ziplocked and airtight inside of a vacuum seal container plastic.
You can do this, but I don't suggest it because it still has a chance of sealing additional moisture inside of the bag. Even with an oxygen absorber or a silica packet, you run that risk, and unless you're doing it for special purpose, like I am for vehicle storage, to make sure I just have additional ammunition with me at all times, I don't necessarily suggest doing this for a long-term SHTF thing, okay? If you want to, be my guest, but I think there's an easier yet better way of storing the ammunition than doing something like this. But I did want to share that with you as a possibility, okay? These are 3 different options of ammo cans. Now, there's tons and tons of different ones available out there. There's all kinds you can get. However, there are some that are better than others, and I want to go over that with you just to make sure we're all on the same page and to hopefully avoid you guys having to spend extra money you don't need to spend, or maybe avoid making mistakes that I've made in the past so you can kind of prepare yourself to not waste money and have better storage capacities, okay? So we're going to go from left to right, and what I did is I actually prioritized these from worst to best, okay? So this is a cheap ammo can. This is like a $5 plastic ammo can from Walmart, okay? It has all the things you expect from an ammo can, except for the fact that it is plastic, right? It's also kind of a thin, cheap plastic. So
I'm going to go ahead and cut through the BS here because I know what he's trying to get at. The plastic one is not as sturdy as the metal one on the right, and the one in the middle is basically a slightly smaller plastic ammo box, which it actually looks more like a camping storage container that's waterproof and watertight and airtight and smaller, so you can kind of sort through your bullets more if you have less but more types of bullets. And the metal can is good for big portions that are going to be stored, but I want to argue that the metal cans can rust. And a lot of the military cans that are made of metal aren't airtight. And you can puncture any of the material these are made out of, so the plastic is just as safe as the metal, because if you're really hitting it that fucking hard, you're probably going to damage the bullets, if not set one off. The metal is not entirely necessary, and you can't stack the metal boxes. From my experience and what I've seen in person, the metal boxes, they don't stack. They have the handle on the top and no feet on the bottom. They sit flat, so there's not as good a storage. But let's let him go just a little bit.
We're going to go ahead and open it up. It's got a latch, just like you would expect. And nothing fancy on the inside, okay? It's just empty. There's nothing in the top or anything like that. There's no foam or anything like that. So, it has an O-ring, okay? It does have an O-ring here. And that's good. I mean, it helps keep moisture out. And then when you latch it, it's got a tight enough latch to where that O-ring does some of the job. I might suggest them over what I just like, good old-fashioned military-style ammo cans. But let's talk about the Survivor dry box real quick.
Survivor
For one, it has a
box,
compass on it, which
camping.
I don't care at all about, but it does have that. It has 3 latches, so it makes sure that it gets a good seal on all sides because of the 3-latch system, okay? So we'll open it up, and this plastic is much more firm than the last can I showed you. It's thicker, it doesn't have as much flex, and it has a really nice O-ring in here. It's actually a thicker O-ring as well. It has some foam too. Now you can get rid of the foam if you're worried about moisture, or you can use it if you want to just keep your stuff nice and quiet. So it's up to you. But this is a really nice ammo can. So all I can say is that it's a little small, and it has a little bit less rigidity to it just because it's plastic over metal. However, let's go ahead and do the test like we did on the last one. There is no flex at all on this can.
So what he did to the other one when I kind of jumped a little bit was he took the ammo cans, like the ones that I have piled up over here, and he squeezed the side to see if he could break the watertight seal, and you can. But if it's full of ammo, you can't squeeze it because you're squeezing the ammo. The only place you'd be able to squeeze is any open air space. and you get a lot more when it's completely empty to really break that seal. So I'm not sure what he was getting at, but the small survivor boxes are thicker. They're also about the same price, and they carry about a third to a half of the ammo if you're going to carry that kind of stuff in a survival pack. Now the survival packs, they're not ammo boxes, so it would also keep people from identifying it as an ammo box if you wanted to keep it less obvious. But it's still a plastic container with an O-ring in it for water tightness, and you can't actually stack them. They're not really built for stacking the way the ammo stack box is. So even though it is a better way of having more boxes with this is higher power, this is lower power, this is hand loaded rounds, and you could have them all color coded with different boxes, and there's smaller amounts in each box. It's not quite as feasible in my opinion if you're going to stockpile any. Of course, I guess you could have 3 of these boxes inside of a bigger box, and then now you have to double the rigidity, double the O sealing, and you could still vacuum seal them inside of those boxes if you were quite the trooper. So let's keep going.
I mean, there's a tiny, tiny bit, but you can see that the lid doesn't separate from the body at all when I'm squeezing it. And I'm squeezing it pretty hard. Yeah, so tiny, tiny bit of flex, much more durable, much better plastic, decent for storing ammo in. However, there is always the king of the mountain, and as easy as this could have been to just say this in the beginning of the video, this military 50 cal style ammo can is just the way to go. They're amazing. The military developed them specifically for storing ammunition in different environments around the world for the reason that they are the best way to store your ammo. So, heavy duty latch on the front. O-ring all the way around, just like you would expect. Okay,
that one actually has an O-ring.
And then plenty of space inside, okay? And it's metal. It's got a great latch on it that's really tight, so you know that that lid is just good to go. And if I drop this, or if I push on it to flex it or anything like that, it's not going to break. It might dent, but it will not break, and that's what matters. You want something that's going to be sealed up tight and durable for long-term use, and that's what these military-style ammo cans do. So, before you leave, because now you think you know how to store your ammo, let me show you some ways I like to prepare this ammo can. Let me show you some ways that I like to put ammo in the cans, and then let's just talk about what's better, loose ammo or is organized ammo better? There's a lot of options.
Organized
I want to show you
is
what
always
those options
better.
are. So give me 1 second and we'll go ahead and do some configuration here for you.
So I'm going to tell you right now, organized ammo is always better. You can grab it better really quickly, you can find it better really quickly, and being organized, you can fit more of it in the same space. That being said, let's let him finish. I let the other video finish. Let's let this finish. Then I'll wrap all of this up and upload this massive video.
Okay, so one of the things I like to do when it comes to just prepping my ammo can and getting it ready for ammunition is I use these gun and reel cloths, or silicone cloths. They're made for just protecting and preparing metal for basically being able to combat the environment. And all I do is wipe it down really quick on the inside and the outside. It gives it a layer of silicone around the can, which helps protect it and helps keep it from taking corrosion from moisture or anything like that. So, very easy thing to do. These cloths are really cheap, and it just helps prep your can and gets it ready to go. So, one thing you can do definitely helps you out, and I definitely suggest buying these even just for your firearms and stuff as well. They work really well, and I feel really good about using them on pretty much anything I own that's metal. So, go ahead and throw this over here. The other thing you're going to need, get some silica. Now, you can also get oxygen absorbers. However, silica seems to have a better track record for moisture in general. You can't combine the two. So if you want silica, great. If you want oxygen absorbers, those will work as well. But you can only do one or the other. You can't do both because they'll basically cancel each other out. So I like silica more for ammunition storage, but this will do the job. And if you want to do oxygen absorbers, it'll do a decent job as well. So I like to basically wipe down the can, and then what I do is I throw one of these in the very bottom of the can or on the side based on how we're going to load it. Now, there's many ways we can load this can, and I want you guys to think about what is important to you when it comes to your long-term ammo storage. Do you just want lots of quantity, or are you going to have different types of ammunition that you want to keep organized? And that's where this is all going to come into play. So, we're going to set this down. Okay. And let me tell you what I mean by, are you going to have quantity or are you going to have organization? So these cans obviously are made to just have ammo dumped inside of them. And if that's what you're going to do, I mean, it's a great way to have as much ammo as you can in the can, and then you just lock it up and forget about it. I mean, that's pretty much all you have to do. So, like I said, I'll just end up putting the silica packet here into the bottom of the can, just so that it's in there, and then it's absorbing oxygen from whatever comes in from above it, which is where any moisture would come into the can. And then I just am going to pour ammunition right on top of it, okay? So let me just show you that really quick. Okay, so there's about 320 rounds of 308 in this ammo can right now. That silica packet's down at the very bottom, and you can see there's still plenty of space. So generally I usually fill these up to about 500, which just gives me easier counts when I look at the cans. I know exactly how much I have, but even then there's still a little more space. So you can load these up with tons and tons of rounds. And if you're talking 9mm, if you're talking 223 or anything along those lines, like, you can fit a lot of rounds in these cans. So definitely a good way to go for quantity, and there's nothing wrong with just putting the rounds in the can directly. There's no cardboard, there's nothing to absorb moisture or anything like that. You have the silica in there just in case there is any moisture, and this is just the way to go if you want to do quantity. Now, if we're talking about organization and knowing what you have and making it a little bit easier to get what you need, then I'll go ahead and show you how I like to do that as well, and you can have some ideas for you to move forward here with your long-term ammo storage solutions. Okay, so you saw how much ammo you can fit in a can quantity-wise when you just dump it in there. I mean, I didn't fill it all the way because I didn't have every little bit of ammo next to me right now, but I did want to show you guys at least a decent amount and how much extra space there was still left over. If you want to keep your ammunition more organized and you want to store it for the long term, but let's say maybe you have different rounds of 357 Magnum that you're using for different applications and you don't want to just mix them all together in one large ammo can, but yet you still want to store them away properly and have the best seal and everything else possible. So this is what I like to do, okay? So we'll go ahead. I still put the silica packet in because it's just the way to go. So I'm going to put this just towards the back, flat up against the wall. Okay. And then what I'll show you guys is that there are ways to put those MTM case guards in the ammo can, which is all plastic, so there's not any risk of moisture, cross-contamination, or anything like that. But these 100 round, at least for the 357 Magnum size, fit in there just so snugly and nice, okay? And you can do that behind it as well. And then there's still room for that silica pack back here. And then you can just stack. And then let's say you want to put some of the 50 rounds in too. So there you go.
So what he's essentially doing is kind of like where I mouthed off a while ago, and I said that you can store the little containers inside the bigger container and have two different layers of waterproof sealing, and it'll be twice as durable. Now you could do this in the plastic, but he's showing it in the metal container. I don't know what fresh hell you think your bullets are going to go through that you need that much protection on them if you also store the storage boxes inside of a steel safe. There's people like me that don't always. Sometimes I switch up my stuff because I got to keep people guessing. But sometimes people store them outside of a safe, and this would be effective, but you don't always need to. This just works really for sorting through ammo if you're going to keep a large amount of ammo that's different in spaces. It's definitely not a bad idea, and what he's doing is kind of what I've got going on with some things. Not all things, but some things. But we'll let him keep talking, because what he's doing is great, and as he puts the boxes in, they are different colors of plastic and still slightly see-through, so you can kind of see what rounds are in it, and you know it's different from the other rounds.
50 right there, 50 right there, okay? So the only downfall, really, is that, as you can tell, with this method, we're only going to be able to fit probably about, 600 rounds of 357 Magnum, if we were to use that caliber for an example here, okay? So you can do it this way to keep everything organized. You can do it this way if you want to try to separate your loads and separate your bullet types or whatever else it might be. However, you're still going to miss out on a lot of space, okay? And yes, it does keep things organized. The MTM case guards don't have anything wrong with them when it comes to corrosion and moisture or anything like that, but you're still missing out on a lot of quantity. So it's up to you if you you want to keep something organized, this is something I like to do just for different loadings I have if I don't want to just dump everything in there together. But you're losing out a lot of space because 600 is definitely not the maximum amount of 357 Magnum one of these ammo cans can hold. And then don't forget, you still want the silica packet. Really quick, so I want to share with you guys, these silica packets will come apart if you're not careful. So I always just take a strip of tape and then tape it top to bottom on two sides, and then it never opens up. You just have to remember to take that tape off before you put it in the oven to recharge it. But still, always put tape on, because if you spill all those little silica pebbles all over your ammo can, it's going to be a real pain to clean up. Trust me on that one, I've done it before. So I wanted to share with you guys how to do long-term ammo storage. And honestly, the easiest thing and the best thing you can do, get ammo cans, throw the silica in, dump the rounds in, or if you want to keep them organized, use plastic case guards. I don't care if they're Plano, I don't care if they're MTM, whatever they are. I just don't want cardboard or anything that can absorb moisture inside of the can with the rest of the rounds. So that is my 2 cents. That's my opinion on the subject. Best way to store them, just do what's been tried and true for years. Grab ammo cans, but then choose whatever you think the best method is for storing inside of those ammo cans. Okay, and make sure you get the silica packets. But other than that, if you want to treat them with that silicone gun cloth, definitely a good way to go, just to help the can itself stay away from corrosion or rust or anything like that. And I think that's going to be it. So I wanted to share that with you guys. I appreciate every single one of you. If you have anything else to say or add, leave it in the comments below. And otherwise, that's going to be it for Magic Prep.
Okay, let me get this to a place where now there's just one thing that I'd like to state on top of these things that have been stated in that video. I didn't have too much to start, stop with, so I'm not gonna really harp, but I had already put this away, and I'm going to put it back away. Of course, with me having moved, this was just me getting things to where they needed to be. You do have different cases. You have cases like this where he's talking about the foam is not that good. And you have things like this that it was actually plastic. And this is just kind of something that you just sit down. It sits really well. You can sit it on a table while you're at the gun range, and that's cool. But you may not want to get rid of the plastic pieces, whether or not you are going to use them this way. And one such example is I actually use mine to hold a couple of different rounds that did not fire. I took and I wrapped these rounds in some materials, and I baked them over a coal that had already went out to make sure they wouldn't fire in the future. So they're safe. They're dead. They're as dead as they can be. And I use it as a pencil holder with a picture, instant print picture of my fiance. So I have a decorative set of bullets just sitting out, and I know they're not going to roll away or anything. There's where can I find an example? Yes, right here actually. I am holding 308 Winchester. These contain a nice little plastic sleeve that goes on your belt. People may not have noticed that. The plastic flexes just enough that you can put this through your belt loop and wear it on your side for when you're out hunting. So I wouldn't get rid of these. Even if you've used all the bullets, I would keep these because the next couple of purchases may not include the kind that contain this material. They may have changed it up or something, and then you still have the plastic to take with you hunting in that situation. So I don't even have a box for that one. that's just the way that one's going to be for right now. I will be condensing my storage of my bullets once I figure out the best way, and that lamination might be the best way to laminate these. I intend for this number of rounds to be laminated and then still dried in a double container containing O-rings in a storage location, because we don't have a lot of room. We have so much more room than we had, but we didn't know that when we moved that we were going to be having so much stuff moving into a house. We thought we went from 2 bedrooms to 4 bedrooms, so that we would have twice as much space, but we actually just had so much stuff. So I'm trying to make the most of the space that we have. I never shoot .308. Practically never. So the bullets that I have, I'm keeping less than 100 rounds of it, and I'm keeping it in the least compact at the moment, but I do want to put it in a position where I can go get it from a external location later on, and that's going to be probably requiring the vacuum seal with silica packs, and then putting the sealed packs in a storage box with a weather strip seal, and then putting that container inside of a locked storage container. So we'll see what we can do. I probably won't advertise what I'm doing on the internet. Y'all will probably not know about those things. But in the meantime, if you're going to do these little subcategories of storing, when you come across different types of containers, consider what you might want to keep and what you might not want to keep, because that kind of storage is still better than this kind of storage. Yes, there's keys in here. Yes, there's quarters in here, but there's long rifle and shorts just sitting in here with some keys and some quarters and pennies, and that's not the ideal way to store bullets. Those are bullets that either I'm going to need to grab them in a hurry, or I'm probably going to take them to the gun range the next time I go and rotate them. Rotation of bullets that you've stored is always one of the best ways to make sure that your bullets aren't old or getting rusty or oxidized or baked, because you know that they're fresh. So just keep that in mind as well. With that, I'm going to be stopping the video, but I want to remind y'all that that was Magic Prepper, and the other one was, well, darn, let me just go to my library and look them both up. Magic Prepper and Rational Preps. So I'll have the links, or at least the information, down below. And just like, comment, share for these people. Let them know that you enjoyed their video. Maybe watch it again with actual video visuals, so that you can see what they're talking about. And let me know what you think. Keep in mind that if you say something really stupid and really sarcastic when I do get around to reading the comments, I will let you know how I feel about it. And that's about the end of that. It's been a long day. This is a long video. I hope that y'all understand when I say goodbye. But be safe out there. And I have a couple of videos coming out for some things that I feel the need to review. And if and when they ever do upload, they're currently uploading now, but it looks like another 48 hours between each of them. I don't know why I have the problems I do uploading videos, but when this one gets uploaded, you may see the other ones uploading shortly after, or maybe not. I'm sorry. They are actively uploading. Just know that I am trying here at Honest Tool Reviews, and every day we get a little closer to reviewing all the tools available everywhere. Thank you, and have a great day. Stay safe.